As you'll realise, I'm not from these parts. I'm actually a native of England. I emigrated with my wife Trudy just over 4 years ago, and we have two grown-up children. Now, I just want to give you a little bit of background. I'm from a non-Christian background. My mother was a fallen Catholic. My father was a non-started Wesleyan Methodist, and I was Christian Church of England. But having said that, although it was a non-Christian childhood, it was a good childhood. I enjoyed it. My parents were good. I have great respect for them. And there was very little Christian input. But having said that, I always knew there must be a God, because I was interested in science and technology. Eventually became an engineer, a professional engineer. And so the idea of evolution just did not stack up for me. So I knew there had to be a God, but the idea that you could have a personal relationship with that God, as some people believed, was a step too far for me. So things moved on. I became an engineer. Eventually I met my wife Trudy, and we married, and things were fine. And then we had our first child in 1982, and I said, we'll have her christened. And my wife Trudy said, well, why do you want to have her christened? Now, I was a bit shocked at that, because everybody was christened in England, regardless of whether they were Christians. It had nothing to do with it. We were christened. So, well, we happened to have there were two couples who were pursuing us at the time. They were good. I got great respect for them, and but they were Christians, and they were actually. I felt they were a bit heavy, and I was a bit uncomfortable, backing away a bit. Anyway, we asked one of these couples how we could get our daughter christened, and they said, "Well, can you say these vows?" And I realised that I couldn't. Trudy and myself, we could not say these vows. So we agreed that we'd have a Thanksgiving for birth. And so that worked out well. We had a church service, enjoyed the service. We were given a copy of John's Gospel, and that was it. It was done as far as I was concerned. Now Trudy, she started reading this copy of John's Gospel, which irritated me a bit, because she was not just reading it, she was studying it and making notes in it, and that was not the purpose. It was just a keepsake of the occasion, not to be read. Anyway, the bottom line is, and it's her story, she actually became convinced and committed and made a commitment to the Lord. She became a Christian, which was good. I saw the changes over a few weeks, the changes in Trudy, and which was good. What was even better is that on Sunday morning she'd take our little girl off to church, and I'd have 2 hours to myself, put my feet up and read the paper. This Christianity was pretty good. But over a period, I realised that Trudy had something that I really wanted. This was not just a temporary thing or a passing thing. There was something real about it. Now, I was open-minded to the idea of being a Christian and a personal relationship, but that was the best I could do, be open-minded. So one night I prayed, and I've done lots of dumb things. I guess all of us do dumb things, but I've done a few smart things. This was the smartest thing I've done. I actually asked the Lord, I prayed a very simple prayer: God, if you're really there, I know you're there, but if you have a relationship with me, if you're interested in me and can speak to me, please help me to believe. And that was the end of it. And over the next few weeks, miraculously, it still seems miraculous as I look back over it, it started to fall into place. The reason for the crucifixion, what Christ did, what it means, the background, I started to study, I started to go to church, and it began to make sense, and in due course I made a commitment, which was good, and our life together started to change. We started to raise our little girl now as a Christian, and but it was not so long afterwards. I'd be going to work, which was a completely different environment. I'd go to the pub with the lads, a different environment, and I began to think. I said I'm a kind of a left-brained individual, and is this all a big mind over matter thing? Is it positive thinking? Is this real? And then an incident happened that cemented the reality in my mind forever. And I was due to go on a business trip up to the Midlands. We lived in London at the time, about 120 miles away, and this was nothing unusual. I travelled a lot at the time, but I just had the sense before I was going to check your tyres. Now, I didn't normally check the car before I went away. You should do. But I certainly didn't check the cars regularly. It was a company car, flash car, fairly new. But I had this sense. Anyway, I went to bed and I suddenly realised I had not checked the tyres. It was essentially the tyres and the tyre pressures. And I thought, well, that's okay, I'll check them in the morning. And in the morning, I was a bit delayed, you know how it is with a young child. And so I got away. As I drove off, I thought, oh, I didn't check my tyres. I thought, well, why is this such a big deal? Anyway, I thought, well, I will check them when I stop for coffee. So I was a bit late now, but I put my foot down. We tend to drive fast in the UK, 85, 90 miles an hour, maybe touch a bit more, and that was fine. I stopped for a coffee, shut out, and as I was setting back onto the motorway, as we call the interstates over there, I thought, I didn't check my tyres. I thought, oh, this is ridiculous. But the force was so irresistible that my foot went on that brake almost beyond my control. I actually stopped on the slipway onto the motorway, which is the only time in my life before. I've never stopped on that slipway before or since. It's a dangerous place to stop. I stopped to check my tyres, and on the front near side tyre there was a circle 5/8 of an inch in diameter right through to the white canvas, no rubber at all. Now that was going to blow, and it would blow big time. You can imagine travelling high speed, front wheel blowout. And at that point I realised that the Lord actually cared, and that he would communicate. And it even makes me feel emotional, even as a left-brained analytical type. As engineers, we have the right side of our brain removed. And as I changed my wheel, it started to rain. I was in my business suit, as we wore business suits in those days, and of course I was getting dirty changing the wheel, but I experienced joy. And I realised that joy is different from happiness. It doesn't make you happy changing a wheel on a car, but I felt joy that the Lord had spoken to me. So I changed that wheel and set off, and then from that point onwards I was just absolutely convicted that the Lord not only cared for me, would speak to me. He was mine, I was his. Yes, I took the tyre into to the work to get the tyre fixed. To get it replaced. And the tyre mechanic there, he said this was going to blow within 20, 25 miles. I said I was on the motorway travelling at high speed, and he said, "Oh, you were lucky, mate." Well, it was not luck.